I'm kind of curious, what is the dumbest thing an American has ever said to you?
So this was when I was in high school, and this was about a sub. She was violently racist. Like, she would go up to hijabi students and say stuff like, "This is a safe space. You guys can take that off." So, one day I'm sitting there, I'm complaining to my friends about my counselor because my schedule was all messed up. I put in so many requests. My counselor was lazy and she was not getting it done. So I'm loudly complaining about it. And the sub, the nosy bitch that she is, she comes up in front of me and she's like, "Hey, I couldn't help but to overhear. If the counselor's not getting what you need done, my advice to you is to have your parent email." Does your mother know English? Another day, she was talking to one of the white girls about her boyfriend and completely unmerited turned around to me and asked, "You wouldn't be able to do that, right? Because you guys get forced into marriage?"
Excuse me, lady. Do you speak Asian? I'm sorry, what? Asian? Which Asian? There are like over 2,000 languages spoken in Asia. Yeah, I'm looking for rice wine. I mean, here you go, but it literally says rice wine in English. Do you know if this one is spicy? I mean, I guess so. There's literally a chicken blowing a fire on that bottle. Ah, thank you.
Oh man, I've got so many of these from Mill Talk. For real, I've got so many. And like a recent video, the British version of English is way different than the American version. For instance, now I'm not going to say here on TikTok, but how to smoke a cigarette in the UK is very derogatory and dark as an American. My biggest pet peeve, though, is if I introduce myself as an American, America is not 3 places, 4 places. There are more places than Texas, New York, California, and Florida. Seriously, everybody thinks we're either from New York, California, or Texas. No, we're not. Sorry, try again.
Hi, I'm American. So this was in high school during one of our art classes. So as we're drawing, we do small talk, and somehow we got on a topic of overpopulation. Mind you, this was 2013 when the Philippines was getting messed up by floods. This one girl says, "It's good that the Philippines getting messed up by floods, because overpopulation." And I'm like dumbstruck. And the girl next to her goes, "Dude, she's Filipino." And that girl looks over to me and she's like, "Oh, I didn't know she was Filipino. I thought she was Asian."
Okay, so basically, like 7 or 8 years ago, I was at Victoria Coach Station in London, and I met this American girl, and we started talking, and she's like, "Oh my God, where you from?" And I was like, "Well, I was born and raised in Romania, but I've been living in England for like 3 years now." And we started talking about different topics, blah, blah. And then we started talking about politics. And I don't actually remember what I said, but I was talking about the Romanian president. And he's like, "Oh my God, he did this and blah, and I'm not really into politics." And then she looked at me like she was flabbergasted, like, wow. And then she asked me, "Oh, you guys have a president as well? I thought it was just an American thing."
So I'm an American expat who's lived abroad for over 10 years. And every year I hear other Americans ask, "Why doesn't this country celebrate Thanksgiving?" I tell everyone I'm Canadian now.
So before having an American driver's license, I only had my Danish one, and I had to use that at a store, at a Walmart. And the cashier looks at my Danish driver's license and she goes, "Oh, where are you from?" And I tell her, "Oh, I'm from Denmark." And she says, "Oh, where's that?" And I say, "It's in Scandinavia." And she goes, "Oh, where's that?" And I tell her, that's in Europe. And she goes, oh, so in Canada. I did not know how to respond to that.
I live in Arizona, and I graduated high school here. But one of my first days in high school, this girl sat next to me in English class. She was like, "Oh, where you from?" And then I tell her I'm from Denmark, and she's like, "Oh, isn't that in Chicago?"
I went to school in the States, so I got a lot of these. But my favorite is when I call myself Asian. They're like, oh, I didn't know you were Asian. You look Indian. But
the dumbest thing I can remember was like 5 years ago. I had been in the States for like 2 months, so I didn't really hate anybody yet. And this lady at work, I walk into her office and she's like, oh, where are you from? Because like I hear an accent. And I told her and she's like, oh, no offense, but I'm going to offend anyways. But I love how Hispanic people, you guys just don't care about problems. You just care about the music, the food, and sex. And fiestas.
First of all, let me just start off by saying that it is incredibly difficult to come up with just one story for something like this, but I'm going to try. In 2009, I was doing this summer program for high school students in LA where I met this girl who I guess was super fascinated by the fact that I was originally from India. One day she asked me, she was like, how do you guys get around where you're from? I was like, what do you mean, how do we get around? We drive. She seemed genuinely confused and she looked at me and she was like, wait, you guys have cars in India? I was like, babe, yeah, I'm from New Delhi. It's the capital. Of course we have cars. What? She very seriously looked at me and said, I thought you guys rode elephants everywhere.
My mom's side of the family is from Ecuador, so I ended up living there for 7 years as a kid. So this one day I'm hanging out with my white American ex, and he asks me to show him what it looks like where my family lives. So I dropped a little Google pin so I can show him, and he looked so confused. And he turns to me and he says, is this a neighborhood? Long story short, this man was not expecting that we had houses.
Perfect this came up because it involves this shirt. So the cashier at the Dollar Tree complimented me on my shirt and he said, was Bob Dylan one of the Beatles? So I said no, but they were around the same time so that he wouldn't feel like a complete idiot. And the older lady behind me, who happened to be Australian, scoffs and goes, no, he wasn't. He came way after the Beatles. And I didn't argue with her. I just like, oh, okay. But I know that I wasn't wrong. Like, I wonder if she ever realized that she was wrong, because that was really embarrassing for her.
I'm late to the trend, but I need to tell this. So a long time ago, I was on vacations with my family in Mexico. And usually we have direct flights from Mexico to Lisbon. Yes, I'm Portuguese. And yeah, we had a direct flight from Lisbon to Cancun, and we were supposed to also have a direct flight from Cancun to Lisbon, but there were problems. So instead, we needed to do a stop in the United States. So when we stop at the United States and they ask to see our passports, things got confusing. Because when the policemen took our passports for the control for checking, they said that we could not pass because our passports were wrong. He said that where it says country, it should be Spain because Portugal is not a country, but a city from Spain.
Oof, I've got a lot of these because I married an American and I used to live in America, but this was my first experience and it happened when I was 19 and I was visiting my boyfriend's family for the first time. So I'm trying to make a good impression and I was sitting at a table of young women and one of these young ladies turns to me and said, so where are you from? Like, I had the audacity to be from somewhere else. And I said, I'm from Australia. I'm from Western Australia. And she said, oh, that's where my chinchilla is from. And I was like, your chinchilla? I don't think those are Australian. And she was like, well, they are, and looks at me like I'm the fucking moron who's calling myself Australian and doesn't know the chinchilla, the national animal of Australia. So I said, oh, I don't think they do. So this is 12 years ago, pre-iPhone in the pocket days. So she gets on the living room computer and Googles chinchilla and opens the Wikipedia page and goes to the region section, points to the word Argentina on a map of South America and says, see, there,